Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. Okay, so I need to sit there and ask a question. Was Brit always like this? There was a period where I took off from watching the show for at least a couple of years. And, I saw a little bit of Brit when I came back, a little bit after the whole Patrick Drake thing and her being super obsessed and everything. But like, I don't remember Brit being so bitchy, right? Like she wakes up and you would almost sit there and think that she had a hangover or whatever, like she was drinking really heavily. And apparently she can't find something and she's complaining that Jason should have took her to a better place. And I'm like, weren't you the one that was sitting there pissy with Jason and kept telling him to F off and you don't need his help and this, that, and the third? Then you want to sit there and complain that, he got you in a room of Kelly's or whatever instead, or Bobby's or whatever instead. And I'm like, girl, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do that for you. And just the whining and the complaining and the bitchiness. Like, I know some people will sit there and say, oh, I like her because she's spunky. Let me just tell you something right off rip. That is a personality trait that I just deeply despise. Like, the whole spunkiness shit just does not work for me. And that's what you get for like a good couple of minutes until she, when she goes to go take a shower, she comes back, she realizes the door's locked. And then she comes downstairs in her towel and everything like that, which she didn't really have to do. Right? Like, she didn't have to sit there and come into a room full of people to sit there and start chewing Jason out and getting up in Carly's face about, you know, she can't get back into her room. Well, she also did drop her medicine, I'm assuming. And, okay, Jason and Carly. One of the things that I generally despise about Carly and Jason, I mean, Carly and Sonny, after they sit down and, they start talking about Michael and, how Drew is going to sit there and try to pin the shooting on him, one of the things she sits there and says is, you got to sit there and help Michael out of this. And I'm just like, you do realize that, like, here's the thing, just because Michael is the center of your world, you do realize that he does have two other kids, right? And especially one of them that is living in Port Charles. I don't know, there was something about it that just irked the shit out of me. Like, oh, well, we gotta sit there and protect Michael, you gotta do everything you can to sit there. First of all, he has his own goddamn child. Did you forget that? That's the problem with Carly, is that she is a very self-centered woman. And it's like, I get that there's a good chance that, Drew's going to sit there and try to pin this on Michael, but, like, that's not Jason's first priority. And it sickens me that her and Sonny have always been like that when it comes towards their kids. Because they, obviously that's their kids, but they act like their kids are supposed to be more of a priority to Jason than than Jason's own goddamn kids. So there's something about that just like irked the shit out of me. But anyway, they're talking about the situation, and Brit comes downstairs, and Brit's pretty much chewing him out, and just saying, "Well, you didn't say anything, about the key and this, that, and the third, and now I'm locked out, and da 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 da." And then she starts sitting there complaining about the room and the diner and just calling it names and stuff. And even after Carly's like, you do realize, like, I own this place, right? And Britt throws it in her face like, oh, well, I saved your kid or whatever. Like, I mean, here's the thing. I get there should be a certain level of gratitude, but when you start throwing that in her face, part of me just can't help but be like, yeah, she did, but, like, you don't have to be all bitchy about it. Like, I get that she doesn't like Carly because, there was a point where Jason practically dropped her to help Carly and the family out and everything, so I get that part. But I'm like, girl, you giving a lot of sass and a lot of attitude And you don't have options. This is something that Jason said, like, you don't really have a lot of places to go. And you don't have a lot of places to go. So you might want to sit there and be careful how you run your goddamn mouth. But anyway, they go back and forth for a little bit. Jason leaves because Tracy calls him. Jason gets down there, and um Tracy tells Jason about Michael and seeing Michael across the street from Drew's, fleeing the scene. And she's like, I'm not going to say anything to the cops or anything, but you got to sit there and she wants Jason to tell Monica about Drew's shooting because they've been sitting there trying to block that news from her for a hot minute. But I mean, at some point she's going to have to sit there and check her phone. So she doesn't really want to do it, and Jason feels like she doesn't want to do it. So Jason's like, I'll go upstairs and I'll tell them. Now, before that happened, Willow comes by with Scout. And, Scout wants to sit there and see Monica before the first day of school. And so, she brings her over there. But I'm like, girl, you didn't have to do that. You could have easily called somebody and have one of the guards or whatever walk Scout up there and do that. You didn't have to actually go there. She's trying to make it seem like, oh well, you know, I did this for Scout, so this way she could see Monica and stuff. It was like, no, there was another way to handle it, and you know that. So we're not gonna play that game. Now, at one point, she was even willing to go upstairs with Scout and Wiley, and Broken was like, no, 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 I'll do that. I gotta sit there and talk to her anyway. And then, of course, Michael and Tracy and Willow go back and forth a little bit, and the threats and oh, if I get the kids, you're never gonna see the kids. Da 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 da. The usual spitting venom, essentially. And then I thought that Willow took Scout back to school, or just went back home, but all she really did was sneak back into the house, into the kitchen to talk to Chase. Chase is conflicted because Chase and Dante are talking shop about Drew and who did it and his motive. And all you need to know is that Chase explained to Dante why Drew would be a suspect. He explained that before, and it has a lot to do with Drew manipulating Willow by paying the judge to not get her, to not get their kids back, get her kids back. So after that, talks to Brooklyn, and here's the thing: he wants to sit there and tell Willow, like, hey, listen, I know you're with him because you think that he could help you get back your kids, but he's the one that made sure that you didn't get your kids by paying that money to the justice when you wouldn't get your kids. But the thing is, he can't do that because, listen, you can't sit there and be talking about active investigation. And he's willing to sit there and throw his career down the drain. And Brooklyn's like, you can't do that. I understand you want to help Willow out, but at what cost? On top of that, you don't even know if that's true. You're sitting there saying this. You're going to tell her this theory like it's actually fact, and you're going to jeopardize your career, and it may not even be true. And then there's the other other theory of if they found out Michael or Willow, more important to Chase, could have snapped and realized what he did and went up um shooting Drew. I mean, hell, there's a good point. There's a good chance that if Chase did sit there and tell Willow, she may snap and decide to kill him afterwards. Like, bro, at this point, it's just better all around for you to keep your goddamn mouth shut. Um, so Cody is not there talking to Outback. He's like, oh, I got to keep your secret. Chase, you can't find out. Nobody can find out. I'm like, Cody, do you even know if that dog belongs to anybody else? Like, I get that they want to sit there and keep this whole the dog missing story for as long as possible. But I'm like, bro, common sense to sit there and tell you, if you find a dog, it may not even be yours. And he's already sitting there talking about, oh, well, I don't want to have to sit there and take you to the pound or whatever. I was like, why don't you take it to the police and see if somebody filed, like, I don't know. I don't know if you could file like a missing dog report or something like that, but like, why don't you take it to the police first before you just decide to take it to the pound? Like, what? Part of me just believes, like, why would they even write that into there? You know? But anyway, he tells the dog to hide, dog's hide. Dante comes in and Dante's like, you need to stop me from, going at Jason. Basically, Smith there bitching, complaining that Jason brought Brit back without any concern for him and Lulu. And I'm like, bro, Portrait ain't your city. Honestly, tell you the truth, F you and Lulu's feelings because it's not about that. Like, oh, you didn't give us a warning or anything like that. And I'm like, a warning? Bro, even if you would have given him a warning, he still would have been upset. And I'm like, I don't, it's just this level of self-centered, like, oh, well, you're wreaking havoc on our family by bringing her back. And I'm like, you don't, you don't owe you an explanation. So, like, all you're doing is, I don't know, acting like a little schoolgirl. Like, shut up. Um, Oh, and before I get remiss or before I forget, Jason did go upstairs to try to tell Monica, but unfortunately, that's when Monica passed away. So, um, just as a, again, heads up, because I feel like I need to keep saying this, when they do start to get into like the Monica stuff and the funerals and stuff like that, I am going to check out from watching General Hospital. We'll just call it for my own mental health. I'm going to just check out. Now I'll still be like reviewing the other soaps, and if I find anything that's not dealing with the Monica stuff, I will sit there and talk about it in my streams. But I don't think it'll be long enough to make a review. Um, Trina and Kai. So Kai pretty much just kind of debriefed Trina on his visit with Drew, to keep up appearances and tell him about the fact that Drew wanted Kai to go on a save, defy police orders and just do some sketchy shit. But Kai said no, I'm not doing it, and he doesn't suspect anything. But the thing is, he doesn't suspect anything yet. See, when he gets out the hospital and he goes in that safe and he realizes that evidence isn't there, that's when he's going to sit there and start to suspect them. But Kai has another problem now. See, throughout their conversation, there's one point in the conversation that he feels that he's going to be a suspect because, he works closely with the congressman or whatever. He has access to Drew's apartment and everything, keys or whatever. But, Trina's like, most likely you've been upstanding and really good to Drew, so the cops aren't going to really be looking at you. Also, yeah, so he wants to sit there and try to distance himself. And then Trina does sit there and say that, they can look at it, people can look at it like we're trying again. Basically, Cynthia is saying that she's willing to sit there and give him another chance. And I kind of feel like the only reason why you're giving him another chance is because he stole the evidence. If he didn't steal that evidence, if that safe was locked, yeah, I don't know if she would have gave him a chance. But whatever. Towards the end of the conversation, he realized that he put his prints on the baseball bat and he left it there. And eventually the cops are going to sit there, when they look at all the evidence, they're going to sit there and see that. So they're going to know that, Kai was there. And of course, at some point, it's going to drag Trina right back into it. Vaughn and Josh pretty much enjoy their last 24 hours as far as being together. She's going to be the college student and he's going to be working closely with Jack. there's a point where they're talking, and there's a possibility that Josh could sit there and be transferred because she still looks like a college student, and they could just transfer her to another city. So they enjoy their last night or whatever, or last day before he heads out, and she's just kind of just there alone for like a good week or whatever. Oh, there's a point where Brit and Carly are going back and forth still, and they there's a point where Brit is getting upset, and she's like, nothing. No, no, it's Carly's son that they're talking about how nothing can sit there and break her and Jason's bond and stuff. And you can tell that Brit is itching to sit there and be like, "Oh, really? So Do you know that Jason knows that your daughter is an WSB agent and he didn't tell you?" She was itching to say that. On top of the fact that on top of the fact that Carly said, if it's something that's involved my kids, you have to tell me. So I feel like it's only a matter of time before Brit snaps and decides to do it, and then says, "Oopsie daisy, she made me upset." Blah 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 blah. I don't know if I said this before, but there's a point where Willow sneaks back in, and Chase catches her. And there's a point where Willow asks, like, "Do you know anything about the whole judge's death and everything like that? Like, do you have any info?" And Chase wants to say something, but ultimately he decides to not tell her, which is a good thing for his career, just in general. And plus, again, he doesn't know. Like his theory isn't proof. It's just literally a theory. So, and again, like Brooklyn said, there's a point where you can sit there and tell her the truth, and she won't care. She'll still sit there and stay with Drew, and you don't lost your career for nothing. So why did he listen? Anyway, if I missed anything, write in the comment section below. Come to the live stream tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I will be sitting there talking about all 5 of the soaps. And yeah, I'll see you there.